Hello, everyone. I hope you are doing well. It's a nice weather outside, and I think you are doing all well on your projects and the assignments. You have already seen the midterm grades. Previously, it wasn't too good. Right now, it's in good shape. I think you have already seen the updated grades. I hope you are happy. Let me go through this week's project and the assignment things. Let me share the screen. Okay, first of all, I apologize that you have seen a lot of questions from the forms and you got full credit for those questions. The reason it happened that normally in a regular semester, the midterm is after the module 7. Since I have squeezed this semester into half, and after that I have changed a lot of deadlines to give you some relief, not too stress on a single week. That's why there's a mismanagement. I really apologize, and you got your full credit, but make sure for your final, you are responsible to answer those form questions. Okay, let's go to the form part 1. Let me go through from the, sorry. Okay, so for the forms, you have already seen a lot of forms in websites. So you need to write the form tag to create a form. So basically the form tag is this form tag, and it should have some action attributes and the method attribute. There are basically 2 methods we are using, basically get and post. And action is like the where you are sending the form data. So here you can see there's a form tag, the action is this space, and stat method is the post. That means whenever you are sending something, it goes to that URL, the action URL, through the post method. So basically there are 2 methods, get and post. I hope you will be using the post most of the time, as because whenever you are using a get method, you can see the form values in the address bar if you're using get method. But in case of a post method, you can't see the data in the address bar. That will go through the post method. So here's a simple form. And here you can see the discussion about the post and the get method. I'm not going in detail. You need to read those things. Then there's some form widget. What is a widget? Widget is an interactive component that the browser uses to interact with the user. For example, a button, a drop-down, a menu, an input field, whatever it is. So most likely we will be using the input tag. So it has some attributes like the type, name, ID, placeholder, and the value. So here's a simple text box. So we're just writing, okay, input type is the text. These are the attributes, name of this text box, the ID of this text box. You will be using the ID lot of the time for grabbing that textbook using JavaScript, or you can put some colors or style through the CSS through the ID. Placeholder is like you are just writing something here. So it will appear by default. And you can see here is the submit button. Submit button is also an input type. The value is like send status. That means it is appearing here. Okay. And there are various types of form widget. So one of them is like level. Level is like before a text box, it appears. So you need to write something. That means it should appear some information. For example, what so what is for this text box? That means it is a username. You need to put some username here. So you need to write some level. So level is another widget. And here's the text area. You have seen a lot of the text areas. You can drag it to make it bigger. So to write a text area, here's the tag text area. And here's the name of the text area. You can grab the text area by calling its name. And you can specify how many rows and how many columns here, and some some default value. Okay. Some common form widgets are like checkbox, like this, then radio button, like that. So for the checkbox, you can check multiple checkbox. For the radio button, you can only select one radio button at a time, not both. But in the checkbox, you can select multiple checkbox. So these are the widget, like the tag, the type. So everything is like input tag, but the type is checkbox here. Here type is radio. And in case of an input, it is like text, like a text field is a text. You can use the password field, then the type should be the password, so that the value should be asterisk. You can't see the value. Okay. And here's the drop-down menu. So to create a drop-down menu, it has the select tag and how many options you can select using the options. The options should be in between inside the select tag. And you can set some default here. I think there's no default here. If you like default, then it will appear here. Then a list box. List box is not a checkbox, like the drop down. So the difference between the list box and the drop down is, in the drop down menu, you can select only once. In the list box, you can select multiple. And then the button. So though you can write some input button, or you can write some button tag and add some images here. As I told you, if you write the type as a password, it will not appear to the screen. It will show you some asterisk sign. Now, sometimes you need to group some items. Whenever you need to group some items, you need to use the field set. So here you are going to group all of those items using a field set. And you can write the legend for this field set by the legend tag. I'm not going to details, so you need to read those things in a detailed way. So there are some other widgets like date picker. If you write input type date, this will appear when you click here. The color picker, when you click something here, the color picker will come here. You can put the RGB, red, green, blue value. There are some input tag. So sometimes you can just specify the minimum and maximum value. Whenever there is an error, it will show you here. The range input, you can slide it from here to there to make it a range. Then the combo box, and this is a specialized text input for the mobile browser. If you're writing input at telephone, when you touch it here, this telephone pad will appear. In case of an email, when you touch it here, the alphabetic, the keyboard will appear. And here's the input attributes, the maximum length, max, mean, pattern, required step. You need to read those descriptions and how it works. Now, you have already written your form. Now you need to style that form. Using the CSS, you need to style that form. So here is our normal form, but we're actually expecting these type of things using some styling. It looks better, right? So you need to add some styles. So here you can see, this is our normal form. We have written some HTML, and using the CSS, we can design this type of things. So whenever you are designing, you are writing some form, you need to design those things using the CSS. And I will show you how you can add some JavaScript there as well. The different types of styling. Okay. Now I need to go to the form part B. It starts with the regular expression. I think you have already known what is the regular expression. So in a short form, it is called like regex. And you can use the regular expression by writing new regular expression, whatever it is. So make sure you know how a regular expression can be written using some characters like asterisks. If you're writing asterisks, that means it is matching the preceding character 0 or more times. If you're writing plus sign, it is 1 or more time. That means if you would like to add at least one character, then you need to use the plus sign. And if you're thinking, okay, it could be anything or nothing, then it should be a star. Then again, the what sign matches the preceding character 0 or 1 time. When you are using the caret sign, this is the caret sign, you can find the caret sign on your numeric keyboard 6, and it exactly match something at the beginning. When you write the dollar sign, it match at the end, and this bar is like string, match the string on the left or the string on the right. So here's some examples. There are other types of meta character in regular expression pattern. I'm not going detail those things. You need to read and understand how it works. So for example, if you're matching with digit, then it's small d. If it's non-digit, capital D, and so on and so forth. For some case sensitive, you need to use the I. And for the global search, you can use G. And here's some JavaScript code. You need to know how a regular expression can be written. So you can see here, this is the regular expression. And it is very familiar or very common that people are using string manipulation using the regular expression. Therefore, the regular expression has a lot of string method like match, replace, search, and split. You'll be using most of them to manipulate your strings. And the very important thing is like the form validation. You have written your form, you have designed that form using the style. Now you need to validate that form. That's because people are writing some weird thing. For example, in case of an email address, so it should be something @ something dot something, right? But if they're using blah 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 @ blah, this is not a valid email address. It should have to be something @ something dot something. So the dot is missing. So this is the one kind of validation for the email. So you need to validate everything. For example, if something is the numeric field, people are writing string things. If it's a string field, people are writing some numeric things. Or you can strip some special characters, as because there is a lot of problem using the special character whenever we're handling the database operations. For example, like hash, dollar, and some other signs, or / or /. You need to validate those things from the user's input. For example, users are trying to write their username as blah 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 / dot blah blah. So this is not a valid username. So you need to validate those things. So there are a lot of form validation. So you can write a JavaScript. So you can add the JavaScript here. In the JavaScript, you can write the form validation things. It is better to use the JavaScript externally, is because you don't need to change the original the HTML. You can just change the JavaScript, so where you are just using for the form validation. It is also helpful to reuse the code. If you are writing the same form validation in two different forms, that means you need to write the same thing here and the other pages. Rather, you can just write everything in the JS file and include this JS file here and other pages. It is more efficient. So you need to read those things, how you can validate the form. So maybe you can add some CSS and JavaScript to validate the form. So if you are not entering anything and hit the submit button, it just gives you some color that, okay, you haven't entered something, you need to enter these things and that things. You can also validate each of those fields one by one. So how you can grab the item or selector. For example, you'd like to select the zip code. So you can get, okay, document.query selector hash zip code. That means zip code is an ID. Then you can validate those things. It should be that. You are just writing some event listener for this input, and this is the function, callback function. This function will call here to validate your zip code value. If it is not valid, then you're just writing something. The HTML5 has its own form validation. With some attributes, you don't need to use any JavaScript. For an example, you can write an attribute like required, so that it is required. You can select the maximum and minimum attribute, max and minimum length, pattern, title, whatever you need to use to validate the form widget using the HTML5. Through the CSS, you can also validate. These are the attributes you can use to validate the form widget using the CSS. For the audio and video, this is really important element nowadays. Previously, we'll be using the embed tag, but nowadays audio has the audio tag, video has the video tag. So inside the audio tag, you can use the source tag to specify the source of this audio clip. And these are other attributes. You can select whether it could be autoplay, it can be looped, it can be muted, or whatever it is. Normally, not all of the browsers are supporting all of those files. So it's better to provide as much as type of files for the single audio through the source tag. For example, MP3 is very common, but sometimes the WAV is using by some other browsers. So you can use maybe both MP3 and WAV in the source tag. For the source, inside the source tag, you can write the MP3 one, and another source tag, you can write the WAV. I think, yeah, this one. So for example, this one, you can just go through OGG file and MP3 file. Similarly, the video tag, previously we'll be using the embed tag, but nowadays we're using video tag. It's in the HTML5. It is these attributes, and similar to the audio, it has like the source tag, which is inside the video tag, and source tag will specify the source of this video. And also it has like different browser has different types of format they are allowing. So normally we'll be using most likely MP4, and some other files are WebM, M4A, or some other files, the format of the video files. Well, you can add some YouTube video. So here you don't need to do anything, just like using an iframe. Through the iframe, you can just grab anything, not like a YouTube video. You can grab anything, any web page content to your web page using the iframe. It is not a good option for your project. You need to use the video and audio tag, but you need to know how you can embed something from somewhere else. So for example, here we're embedding a video tag from YouTube and we're just showing it here using the iframe. Now you need to know when you need to use the script and when the style. So as I have told you, it's better to use the source. So in the script, you can write some JavaScript, or you can write the JavaScript in some files and include it through the source. In both cases, you need to use the script tag. So you often miss the end script tag after writing a JavaScript. So make sure you need to write both starting and ending tag. It's better to use the external JavaScript things, not writing the JavaScript inside the HTML. If it is really small things, you can add, but if it's bigger or complex, it's better to use an external JavaScript file. For the style, normally we'll be adding our styles or CSS things in the style tag for the decoration purposes. And here's an example of the restaurant review. I think you have already done this type of designing things. For example, I would like to create a restaurant review things. So it should have been homepage, some restaurant review things. And so there are a lot of restaurant review things for the restaurant 1, restaurant 2, and some other things. So from the home, I'm sorry. So this is the home page. This is the detailed page of the restaurant review. This is the add review page. You need to add the review of the restaurant. And this is the about page of that restaurant. So there are like 4 pages for your a website. So you need to design each of those things in your scrapbook or in the paper or some other online tool. And then whenever you design your project, you can implement one by one. It's the better way. So that's why for the project 3A, you have designed your project, whatever you choose. Then you are going to design your project based on the project 3A. So here's some of the examples. You need to read those things. Okay, so this is for the module 7 forms. So module 8 is the jQuery. This is really important and a little bit tricky. So jQuery is a JavaScript library. So why do we need to use the JavaScript library? Is because it's better to use lesser code, better to write lesser code, because if you need to write the JavaScript from the scratch, you write a lot of things. And these libraries have their built-in functionality or methods. You can just call those methods or APIs. It is better to use those JavaScript libraries. And jQuery is very much popular. So first of all, you need to know what are the common tasks that can be performed by the jQuery. You can manipulate the DOM, the document object modeling, the user interaction, animation, widget, some AJAX, asynchronous JavaScript, and browser queries. So you can do those things through the jQuery. So for the jQuery, you need to download the jQuery from the jQuery. So normally the latest, you can just go to the jQuery.com. I don't know what is the latest version right now. Yeah, so 3.6. You can download this 3.6 and add these things in the source. So one thing you need to remember that whenever you are designing a website or developing a website, you can add this JavaScript file, like jQuery JavaScript file from your own computer, or you can store those things to your own server. But the problem is, if you have like 1 million user, the 1 million user just opening a page and that requires this JavaScript file, that 1 million user is trying to download this JavaScript file from your local server. So it's not a good choice, a good option. There's a, it is called like single point of failure. In case of a problem, or in case of an bandwidth issue, maybe there are a lot of inconsistency happen. People are not getting the web pages. People are not getting downloaded those things. So it's better to use the CDN network. What is the CDN network? So jQuery is already stored in the CDN network. So here is your server. People are trying to download the jQuery JavaScript from your server. But if you're placing the CDN things, this is the CDN web page. I'm sorry, CDN URL. CDN is the content delivery network. Nowadays, whenever you are streaming Netflix, they're not coming from the Netflix server. They are just storing in different CDN network. And your computer, your computer or TV is trying to grab the content from the nearby network. So for example, you're here, you don't need to go through all the way there. This is the closest one, you can download those things. So here's the distributed system. So that's why it is better to use their URL address so that there is no pressure on your end. And to make it clear, make sure that it is the right things and it is not altered, you can use those things, integrity and the cross origin. So these are the keys that will check that the JavaScript file is original, it is not altered. Okay, so normally whenever you are writing a JavaScript using the jQuery, it has the built-in function called like jQuery function. And it has also a function called like ready function. That means whenever the JavaScript, whenever full JavaScript or jQuery is downloaded to your computer, then your web page is trying to respond. So this is the ready function. Ready function means like until downloading all of those JavaScript, your web page is not reacting. Whenever it is done, then it is reacting. So that's why people are using the ready function. It is very common. But since those are very common, people are not using too much the ready function, not writing the ready function, R-E-A-D-Y, it is default. So jQuery function is similar to the dollar things. You don't need to write jQuery all of the time, so rather you can use only the dollar. So for example, this is the jQuery hello bar. This is the same as dollar hello bar, just like here. So jQuery, you are going to grab the element by the ID with hello from the document. You can write this way, or you can just write dollar instead of jQuery. Both are working as the same. Then the selectors. So basically, the JavaScript function is used to select the DOM element using the selectors. You know how to grab an item. So you can add class. So JavaScript method is the add class that is used to add a CSS class to selected items that is illustrated in the animation here. You can see. So here we're writing the HTML. Then here we're grabbing the p tag. Then we're adding a class important. So when you see the p tag hello here, I'm sorry, the p means all of those paragraph tag. Normally the add class important here, color is red. It should write, so it should read that this step is great, right? But we can see the hello query is also red. It's because whenever we run this script, it calls all of those p tag, then add important class for all of those years. So we have already important class here. We have added the important class as well with the add class selector so that all of them are red. And there are some other things. I'm not going all of those details. Some additional selectors are attribute selectors, basic filter selectoring, child filter, content filter, and hierarchy selector. So you can grab the attribute by this way, like, okay, this is the span. I need to get the ID of the span. Some basic filtering, okay, get the first paragraph tag. Then some child filtering, okay, get the last child of this li. The hierarchy could be like, okay, select all span that are descendant of li. The events is the callback function. So let me, so whenever you click somewhere, it will pop up something. So they are using those event handling things. For example, the click method, when you click a link, it will pop up something. So on the click callback function, you can write something to pop up. You can use some mouse over or mouse out things. Mouse center, mouse leave, whenever you're moving the mouse, you can see most of the pages is popping up. So they're using those things there. These are the events for the jQuery. You can also use the keyboard functions like key down, key up, key press. You can also use the focus, submit, on submit, blur, and some other form events. So here you can see, okay, 100. Negative 100. So you can see here, whenever I'm focusing this one, it is like blue color. So you can use the on focus or whatever the function we have used here. Okay. When on click is doing those operations. And add focus and blur callback here. You can key up, collaborate here. So you need to write those things. Okay. My computer is getting trained, so let me finish the video as soon as possible. So you can use the CSS method as well. Show, hide, toggling, fade in, fade out, slide up. You can control the animation. For example, for the slow, it is the slow. For the show method, you can make it slow, normal, fast, whatever you need to do. Fade in, fade out. You can add those CSS using the jQuery. You can sliding it like this way. In the DOM manipulation, you can change the HTML things. So you can grab some item and change those items things. So you can add some item here to the jQuery. You can append the last, you can insert in between somewhere. You can wrap it with the div. You can wrap all, you can wrap inner. So a lot of functions, you need to use those things. You can remove some items using the jQuery to the remove method. And you can also use the detach things similarly. But the difference between the remove and detached is remove is actually removing everything, but detach is removing and returning the remove node. But in case of the remove, it is not returning anything. So if you need to store or show the return things, then you need to use the detach method. So it will detach and remove. It will remove and return to you. Then the HTML and text method, HTML is actually giving you the whole HTML things, and text is only giving you the text. For example, if you'd like to get the HTML of this p tag, it will give you the ABC. It will strip the HTML tags. But in case of HTML, it is giving you the whole thing. Okay, this is the part 1. Let me go to the part 2. I think I have covered most of part 2 things. Sorry, my computer is training, so it is trying to make the important thing first. So it's slowing down other. So I have already covered those things. This is the part of 2 that I've covered altogether. For the project things, I think the project 3A is the design, and project 3 is due today. And it is the development of your designed work, what you have designed in your paper and pencil or in online tool. These are the required things that should be present on your development. Project 4 is like you need to add the CSS theme and the refactor it, and it should be a responsive website. So it is like the modification of your project 3. So you need to go through those things and let me know if you have any question. And you have 1 more week to add those things. So I hope that's all for this week. And we're on the week 5. So we have only 2.5 weeks left. So we'll be doing those things very fast. So normally on last 1 or 2 weeks, there is not too much reading things, but you need to do on your project. It's very slow. And so we are here at module 6, I think. So module 7, we're done with the module 8. So module 9 and 10. So there's a chapter reading for 9, but there are not too much things in the module 10, but you need to read the REPL things for both your project and the test. So I found some emails before the midterm that whether the REPL is important. It is important in a sense, like you need to know how we have coded, and these are really important for your project as well as the midterm and final. So make sure you go through those REPLs. And that's all for today, this week's video. I hope I will post another video next week. See you then. Bye.